Friends, today we shall learn the topic of trigeminal nerve, wherein we shall discuss the various nuclei, the sensory and motor components, the ganglion, the three divisions and their respective branches, and the important details of those branches, and some applied points. And this is a very vast and intricate topic, which has very heavy information. So it demands 100% attention plus sincere repetition. And also, I would suggest you to take breaks between the parts of the video. For example, after completing the nuclei and ganglion of trigeminal, you should take a break, maybe 15-20 minutes. It's up to you. Maybe half an hour. Then come again, revise the and also note down everything, all the important points which I mentioned, almost everything. So revise those points again, then going to the next part, that is the ophthalmic division. Then again, note down everything, pay attention, take a 15-20 minutes break, then come again, then the maxillary division, and after it again a break, and then mandibular division, and so on. Because you won't be able to grasp so much of information at a stretch, and it requires many frequent revision also. So firstly, we shall discuss some general points regarding the trigeminal nerve. So trigeminal nerve is the fifth cranial nerve. It is a mixed nerve, that is, it contains both sensory and motor fibers, and its mandibular branch is the nerve of first branchial arch along with the chorda tympani nerve. Moreover, it is involved in the sensory supply of face, some part of nose and the paranasal sinuses, and also of the tongue. And it is related to the four parasympathetic ganglia of the head and neck, that is the otic ganglion, the submandibular ganglion, pterygopalatal ganglion, and the ciliary ganglion. And also a very important fact to remember, that the trigeminal nerve is the largest cranial nerve. Now we shall discuss the various nuclei of trigeminal nerve. So as it is a mixed nerve, it consists of certain sensory nuclei and motor nuclei. Now this is the diagram of the transverse section of upper pons. This is the cavity of fourth ventricle. And firstly, we shall begin with the sensory nuclei. So there are three sensory nuclei: the spinal nucleus, the principal or superior sensory nucleus, and the mesencephalic nucleus. Now firstly, talking about the superior sensory nucleus. So it is located at the level of upper pons, and the fibers which carry the touch and pressure sensations arrive here. And the spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve is located in the spinal cord, and the fibers which carry pain and temperature sensations arrive at here. And the mesencephalic nucleus. Now this is a section of pons, and mesencephalic nucleus is present at the level of midbrain. So here only the mesencephalic root is seen. The nucleus is at a higher level, so it cannot be appreciated in this diagram. So the mesencephalic, as I said, mesencephalic nucleus is present at the midbrain, and the proprioceptive sensations from the TM joint and the muscles of mastication arrive at here. Now talking about the motor nucleus. So this is our motor nucleus, also known as the branchial efferent. So it is present at the level of upper pons and supplies the muscles derived from the first branchial arch. There are 8 muscles, and we shall name them afterwards in this video. But for now, there are 8 muscles derived from the first branchial arch, and these are supplied by the branchial efferents of the fascia, of the trigeminal nerve, sorry. And the sensory nuclei, the column is also known as general somatic efferent column, and the motor is known as branchial efferent column. Now we shall see the general structure of a pseudo-unipolar neuron, and this is necessary to understand the ganglion and the sensory components of trigeminal nerve. So a pseudo-unipolar neuron has a cell body, a peripheral process related towards the peripheral nervous system, and a central process related towards the central nervous system. So keep this in your mind. Now we shall discuss the Gazerian ganglion or the trigeminal ganglion. So it consists of pseudo-unipolar neurons. The cell bodies of pseudo-unipolar neurons are collected in the trigeminal ganglion. Moreover, it is homologous to the dorsal root ganglion of a spinal nerve, and it is also known as a crescentic ganglion or a semilunar ganglion because it is crescentic in shape. Its anterolateral part is convex, and from that convex part, the three divisions, the ophthalmic, maxillary, and mandibular divisions, arise. Now we shall discuss the location of trigeminal ganglion. So it is located in the middle cranial fossa on the trigeminal impression present on the anterior surface of the apex of petrous temporal bone, and it is lodged in a dural cave known as Meckel's cave. This is a cave or a cavity formed by the two layers of dura, as you can see. These are the two layers of dura. They form a cave known as Meckel's cave, and herein we have the fifth nerve ganglion, the trigeminal ganglion. This cave is lined by pia mater and arachnoid, and thus the ganglion is always submerged in CSF. Now, in other words, you may say that the apex of petrous temporal bone comes under the inferior relations of the trigeminal ganglion as it lies below it, as you can see in the diagram. And another fact to remember is that the trigeminal ganglion lies at about 5 cm depth from the preauricular point. Now we shall discuss the various relations of the Gasserian ganglion. And firstly, let's orient ourselves with the diagram. So this is a section of the middle cranial fossa seen from above. And this is our trigeminal ganglion. This side is medial and this side is lateral. And these are the three divisions of the Gasserian ganglion. V1, that is the ophthalmic nerve, V2, that is the maxillary nerve, and V3, that is the mandibular nerve. So firstly, talking about the medial relations. So medially we have two structures, the internal carotid artery and the posterior part of cavernous sinus. Laterally, we have the middle meningeal artery. Now coming to the inferior relations, we saw that the apex of petrous temporal bone lies below the Meckel's cave and the trigeminal ganglion. So firstly, we have the apex of petrous temporal bone in the inferior relations. Then we have the greater petrosal nerve. This is the greater petrosal nerve, and now greater petrosal nerve passes through foramen lacerum. So we have foramen lacerum as the third inferior relation. So structures which are associated and are present in the relations of another structure can be remembered easily. And lastly, we have the motor root of trigeminal nerve itself in the inferior relations. And talking about the superior relations, we have the parahippocampal gyrus as the superior relation. It cannot be seen in the diagram as it is the transverse section of the middle cranial fossa. So obviously it can be seen in this diagram. So brushing up the relations again. Superiorly we have the parahippocampal gyrus. Medially we have the internal carotid artery and the posterior part of cavernous sinus. Laterally we have the middle meningeal artery. And inferiorly we have the motor root of trigeminal nerve, the greater petrosal nerve, the foramen through which it passes through, that is the foramen lacerum, and the apex of the petrous temporal bone. Talking about the arterial supply of the Gasserian ganglion. So we have 4 arteries, and out of them 2 come in the relations of the ganglion itself. We have the internal carotid artery, then the middle meningeal artery, accessory meningeal arteries, and the meningeal branch of ascending pharyngeal artery. So these are the 4 arteries supplying the trigeminal ganglion. As we saw that the cells in the ganglion are the cell bodies of the pseudounipolar neurons. So the central and the pseudounipolar neurons have central processes and the peripheral processes. So the peripheral processes form the 3 nerves, the 3 divisions, that is the ophthalmic, maxillary, and mandibular. These 3 divisions are formed by the peripheral processes. And the central processes form the sensory root of the trigeminal nerve. And this root is attached to the upper pons at their junction with the inferior cerebellar peduncle. And the motor root arises from the brainstem, superomedial to the sensory root. Then, as in the diagram, it is firstly medial, then comes from medial to lateral, and joins the sensory root at foramen oval, the foramen through which the mandibular nerve passes. And mandibular nerve is the only motor branch. So the motor root passes through the mandibular nerve through the foramen oval and merges with it. So in all, the Gasserian ganglion has 2 roots and 3 branches. The peripheral processes form the 3 branches, the central process forms the sensory root, the motor root enters the trigeminal nerve at the foramen oval. Now let's understand the sensory components. So firstly we have the peripheral processes which form the 3 nerves, the 3 divisions. The ophthalmic denoted by V1, maxillary denoted by V2, and mandibular denoted by V3. Ophthalmic comes into the cranium through the superior orbital fission. Maxillary comes into the cranium through foramen rotundum, and mandibular comes through foramen oval. So these were the peripheral processes, and they carry the touch, pressure, pain, and temperature sensations from the most of the area of face, then the mucous membrane of nose, the paranasal sinuses, and the mucous membrane of tongue. From 4 places they carry these 4 sensations. And then come to their cell bodies. These are the peripheral processes. Their cell bodies are present in the trigeminal ganglion, which we discussed just before. And from that arise the central processes which form the sensory root. And from it, some fibers ascend and some fibers descend. Ascending fibers go to the superior sensory nucleus, and the descending fibers go to the spinal nucleus. Now the name itself suggests that superior sensory nucleus is superior, it is above. So the ascending fibers go to superior sensory nucleus and they carry touch and pressure sensations. while the descending fibers go to spinal nucleus and carry the pain and temperature sensation. So brushing it up again, the peripheral processes comprise of the three divisions and they carry touch, pressure, temperature and pain sensations from face, mucous membrane of nose, the paranasal sinuses and most of the tongue, the mucous membrane of most of the tongue. Then these sensations are carried to cell bodies which lie in the Gazerian ganglion. Then to the central processes which form the sensory root, and out of them some fibers ascend and some descend. The ascending fibers reach the superior sensory nucleus with the touch and pressure sensations, and the descending fibers reach the spinal nucleus with pain and temperature sensations. So now we shall learn how the trigeminal nerve carries various sensations to the nuclei through some fun examples. So say someone gives you a tight slap. So that's obviously a condition causing pain, right? So that pain sensation is perceived by the particular branch supplying of trigeminal nerve supplying that region. That is the peripheral process. Then to the cell bodies, then to central processes, and ultimately it reaches the spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve as it's the pain sensation. Then if your cheek are touched by something very hot, say a glass of hot water or maybe hot milk, or maybe something very cold, say an ice cube, or something very hot or cold is placed in your mouth, then that sensations are again perceived by the peripheral processes, that is the nerve supplying that particular region, then to cell bodies, central processes, ultimately to the spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve. As spinal nucleus carries both pain and temperature sensations. Now, if you go to some wedding and your elderly aunties look at you and are awestruck and out of affection pull your cheeks, beta kitna bade ho gaye ho tum to, saying they pull your cheeks, so that's a pressure sensation, right? So it is again carried from peripheral process, cell body, central process and to the superior sensory nucleus. And now this example will be most favorite of yours. So if you are romancing around with your girlfriend or boyfriend and he or she touches your cheek with utmost of affection, so that sensation will again reach from peripheral process, cell body, central processes and to the superior sensory nucleus. So superior sensory nucleus carries the sensation of touch and pressure. So these kind of weird and funny examples make things easy to be remembered and they strike you when you are writing the exam or revising again. The third remaining sensory nucleus is our mesencephalic nucleus, and as we know it carries the proprioceptive sensations. So the muscles of face, the muscles of mastication, extraocular muscles, and these all give rise to proprioceptive fibers, and these fibers reach the mesencephalic nucleus bypassing the ganglion. So that's how mesencephalic nucleus receives its fibers. Now we shall talk about the higher ascent of those fibers. So the fibers from the superior sensory nucleus, spinal nucleus, and the mesencephalic nucleus traverse to the contralateral side and form the trigeminal lemniscus, which ascends upwards. Then these fibers relay at the thalamus, the ventral posteromedial nucleus of thalamus, and from there the third order neurons ultimately relay at the area 312 or the somatosensory area of the cerebral cortex. Now coming to the motor component of the trigeminal nerve, so it receives impulses from three parts: firstly the right and left cerebral hemispheres, and the red nucleus present in the midbrain, and lastly from the mesencephalic nucleus of trigeminal nerve. And it supplies 8 muscles. The 4 muscles of mastication, which are the medial pterygoid, lateral pterygoid, masseter, and the temporalis. These muscles are involved in the process of mastication, that is chewing, while we eat the food. And the other 4 muscles are tensor belli palatini, tensor tympani, mylohyoid, and anterior belly of digastric. Now, which nerve supplies the posterior belly of digastric? Yes, the facial nerve. So facial nerve supplies the posterior belly, and the trigeminal nerve supplies the anterior belly of digastric, specifically the mandibular branch of trigeminal nerve. So we have 8 muscles: lateral pterygoid, medial pterygoid, temporalis, masseter, tensor belli palatini, tensor tympani, mylohyoid, and anterior belly of digastric. So now we shall discuss some general points regarding the 3 divisions of trigeminal nerve. So we have ophthalmic, maxillary, and mandibular. And ophthalmic is denoted by V1, maxillary is denoted by V2, and mandibular is denoted by V3. Now ophthalmic and maxillary are sensory branches, and mandibular is a mixed branch. Also, the skeleton of the face develops from three embryological processes: the frontonasal process, maxillary process, and the mandibular process. So the derivatives of frontonasal process are supplied by ophthalmic nerve. Those of maxillary process are supplied by maxillary nerve, and of mandibular process are supplied by the mandibular nerve. So now we shall discuss the ophthalmic division of the trigeminal nerve. So the ophthalmic nerve, after arising from the trigeminal ganglion, passes lateral to the cavernous sinus and enters the orbit through the supraorbital fissure. And before that, it divides. It also gives off three branches: frontal nerve, nasociliary, and lacrimal. So we shall discuss these branches and their sub branches. So firstly, we shall discuss the frontal branch of ophthalmic nerve, and frontal in turn divides into two branches: supratrochlear and supraorbital. So firstly, talking about the supratrochlear, so it supplies the upper eyelid, the conjunctiva, and the adjoining part, that is the lower part of forehead. Talking about the supraorbital branch, so it also supplies upper eyelid, and most importantly, it supplies frontal air sinus and the upper part of forehead and scalp till vertex. So these three things are supplied by the supratrochlear: the upper eyelid along with the supraorbital nerve, then the frontal air sinus, and the forehead and scalp up to the vertex. Now coming to the second branch, that is the nasociliary branch. So nasociliary branch also has 5 divisions or 5 nerves. Firstly, we have the branches to the ciliary ganglion. Then the long ciliary nerve. This long ciliary nerve is sensory to the eyeball. Then the posterior ethmoidal nerve, which supplies the sinus of the same, the posterior ethmoidal sinus plus the sphenoidal air sinus. And talking about the anterior ethmoidal nerve, so it supplies, now posterior ethmoidal sinus is supplied by the posterior ethmoidal nerve. So we have two sinuses left from the ethmoidal sinuses, the anterior and middle. So these two are supplied by the anterior ethmoidal nerve. Then it also has some nasal branches, that is medial internal nasal nerve, lateral internal nasal nerve, and external nasal nerve. The external nasal nerve supplies the LA of the vestibule and the tip of the nose. So in all, the anterior ethmoidal nerve has 4 functions. One is to supply the anterior and middle ethmoidal sinuses, then the medial internal nasal nerve, the lateral internal nasal nerve, and the external nasal nerve. And lastly, we have the infratrochlear nerve, which supplies both the eyelid, the side of nose, and the lacrimal sac. Now, talking about the third branch. So third branch is the lacrimal branch, and as the name suggests, it is involved in the secretomotor pathway of lacrimal gland and supplies the lacrimal gland. It carries the secretomotor fibers from the zygomaticotemporal nerve and carries them to the lacrimal gland. And also, it supplies the lateral part of upper eyelid. So we have covered all the nerves which supply the upper eyelid. And going from lateral to medial, the lateralmost nerve is lacrimal nerve. Then we have the supraorbital nerve, then supratrochlear, and lastly infratrochlear. So these are the 4 nerves supplying the upper eyelid, and all the 4 are the branches of ophthalmic nerve. The lower eyelid is supplied by infratrochlear and infraorbital nerves, and infraorbital is a branch of maxillary nerve, which we will see in the coming parts of this video. So revising the branches again. So firstly, we have the frontal branch, which in turn gives 2 branches, the supratrochlear and supraorbital. Supratrochlear supplies the upper eyelid, the conjunctiva, and the lower part of forehead. The supraorbital supplies the frontal air sinus, upper eyelid, and the forehead and scalp up to vertex. And the nasociliary branch, it has 5 branches. First is the ganglionic branch to ciliary ganglion, then the long ciliary nerve, which is sensory to the eyeball, then we have the posterior ethmoidal nerve, which supplies the sphenoidal and posterior ethmoidal air sinuses. Then we have the anterior ethmoidal nerve, which supplies the anterior and middle air sinuses, ethmoidal air sinuses. Then medial internal nasal branch, lateral internal nasal branch, external nasal branch, which supplies the LA and tip of the nose, and the infratrochlear nerve, which supplies the sides of the nose, both the eyelids, and the lacrimal sac. And the third branch is the lacrimal branch, which supplies the lateral part of upper eyelid and also carries the fibers of the zygomatic nerve to the lacrimal gland. Now we shall discuss a reflex, a very well-known reflex associated with the ophthalmic nerve, that is the corneal reflex. So it's a bilateral reflex, and its efferent is the ophthalmic division of the trigeminal nerve, and the efferent is the facial nerve. So when you touch your conjunctiva or cornea with something, then the sensations are carried by the ophthalmic nerve to the superior sensory nucleus, which senses the touch and pressure sensation. From it, the impulses are carried to the medial longitudinal bundle. From there to the motor nucleus of facial nerve. And as the facial nerve supplies the muscles of face, which includes the orbicularis oculi, the muscle involved in the closure of eye. So, as this muscle is stimulated, a blinking occurs. Closure of eyes occurs, which is seen as blinking. So this was about the corneal reflex. When there is a damage to ophthalmic nerve and injury to it, the corneal reflex is absent, and this is diagnostically very useful. Now we shall discuss the maxillary division. So maxillary is the V2, and it arises from the trigeminal ganglion and passes lateral to the cavernous sinus below the ophthalmic nerve and leaves the middle cranial fossa through foramen rotundum. Firstly, it gives the meningeal branch in the middle cranial fossa. Then it comes to the pterygopalatine fossa, wherein it gives three branches. Firstly, it gives ganglionic branches, that is the branches to pterygopalatine ganglion. Then the zygomatic branch. Now zygomatic branch enters the orbit through lateral part of infraorbital fissure and then enters the zygomatic bone. And just after entering the zygomatic bone, it gives off two branches, zygomatico-temporal and zygomatico-facial, which supply the skin of temple and somewhat the skin of face. Another important point regarding this is zygomatico-temporal nerve gives off the communicating branch to the lacrimal nerve, from which the fibers, the secretomotor fibers to the lacrimal gland from the pterygopalatine ganglion are passed down. Here it can be appreciated. So this is the zygomatic nerve, and the fibers from the pterygopalatine ganglion pass through the zygomatico-temporal nerve, then to the communicating branch, and then to the lacrimal nerve, and then ultimately are supplied to the lacrimal gland. And then we come to the posterior superior alveolar nerve. So this branch enters the maxillary bone through its posterior surface, and it supplies the upper three molars. It supplies the upper three molars, which are the most posterior among the teeth. So it is named posterior superior alveolar nerve. Then we come then after this marks the beginning of infraorbital nerve. The course of maxillary nerve after this posterior superior alveolar nerve is known as infraorbital nerve. And this infraorbital nerve consists of three branches: middle superior alveolar nerve, anterior superior alveolar nerve, and on the face we have palpebral, nasal, and labial branches. So the infraorbital nerve enters the orbit through infraorbital fissure. Then it runs in the infraorbital groove, and there it gives middle superior alveolar nerve. Then the infraorbital canal, where it gives the anterior superior alveolar nerve, and finally comes out of infraorbital foramen on the face, where it gives three branches, that is the palpebral, the nasal, and the labial branches. Now we saw that posterior superior alveolar nerve supplies the three molars, the upper three molars. The two premolars are supplied by middle superior alveolar nerve, and the anterior superior alveolar nerve supplies the incisors and canines. Moreover, all of these three branches are involved in the supply of maxillary sinus, and the anterior superior alveolar nerve also supplies anterior-inferior part of the nose. So the course of infraorbital nerve can also be divided into two parts, in the infraorbital canal and on the face. It gives off two branches in the infraorbital canal, that is the middle superior alveolar nerve and the anterior superior alveolar nerve, and on the face it gives off palpebral, nasal, and labial branches. So revising the entire thing again. So the maxillary nerve arises from trigeminal ganglion. Then it is present in the middle cranial fossa, wherein it gives meningeal branch. Then it leaves middle cranial fossa through foramen rotundum, and then it comes to the pterygopalatine fossa, wherein it gives three branches. Firstly, the ganglionic branch to pterygopalatine ganglion. Then the zygomatic nerve, which enters the orbit through the lateral part of infraorbital fissure, and enters the zygomatic bone. And before entering the zygomatic bone, it gives off zygomatico-temporal and zygomatico-facial branches, which supply the certain part of skin of temple and face. And the zygomatico-temporal nerve is involved in the secretomotor pathway to the lacrimal gland. It communicates with the lacrimal nerve, and then the fibers reach the gland. Then we have the posterior superior alveolar nerve, which enters the maxillary bone through its posterior surface, and it supplies the upper three molars, and also the maxillary sinus. Now the course from now is known as infraorbital nerve. So the infraorbital nerve enters the orbit through infraorbital fissure. Firstly, it is present in infraorbital groove, and there it gives the middle superior alveolar nerve branch, which supplies the premolars and the maxillary sinus, of course. Then we have the anterior superior alveolar nerve, which supplies the upper incisors and canines, the anteroinferior part of nose, and also the maxillary sinus. So maxillary sinus is supplied by all the three superior alveolar nerves, the anterior, middle, and posterior. All the three superior alveolar nerves supply the maxillary sinus, and this constitutes the nerve supply of maxillary sinus. So in the infraorbital canal, it gives anterior superior alveolar nerve. Then coming out of the infraorbital foramen, it gives of the palpebral, nasal, and labial branches on the face. Now we shall brush up the nerve supply of various paranasal air sinuses. It's a separate topic, but since we have discussed all the branches, so let's brush up the branches which are involved in the nerve supply of paranasal sinuses. So firstly, we have four categories of paranasal air sinuses: the frontal, maxillary, sphenoidal, and ethmoidal. And under ethmoidal, we have anterior, middle, and posterior ethmoidal sinuses. So firstly, talking about the frontal air sinus, it is supplied by the supraorbital nerve, which is a branch of ophthalmic nerve, the frontal branch of ophthalmic nerve. So basically ophthalmic nerve. Then talking about the maxillary air sinus, so as the name suggests, it is supplied by the branches of maxillary nerve. The anterior, middle, and posterior superior alveolar nerves supply the maxillary air sinus. And then this sphenoidal air sinus, it is supplied by the posterior ethmoidal nerve. And talking about the ethmoidal air sinus is that, so anterior and middle are supplied by the anterior ethmoidal nerve, and the posterior ethmoidal sinus is supplied by the nerve of the same name, that is the posterior ethmoidal nerve. So now we shall discuss the mandibular nerve, the largest branch of the trigeminal nerve, and the only mixed branch of trigeminal nerve, which is the only branch which consists of motor fibers. This is the, as I said earlier, this is the branch of the first branchial arch and supplies the structures derived from it. Moreover, it is associated with the otic and the submandibular parasympathetic ganglia. So discussing its course, it has two routes, the sensory route and the motor route. The sensory route arises from the lateral part of the ganglion, the trigeminal ganglion, and then enters the foramen ovale. And the motor route is deep to the sensory route and the ganglion both, and fuses with the sensory route at the foramen ovale, and they both combine to form a single trunk. Now, extracranially, it lies between the tensor veli palatini and the lateral pterygoid muscles. And then finally, after a short course, it divides into two divisions, an anterior division and posterior division. So we discuss the branches of mandibular nerve in three parts: the branches of its main trunk, branches of anterior division, and the branches of posterior division. So firstly, discussing the branches of the main trunk. So we have two nerves, the meningeal branch and the nerve to medial pterygoid. Now the meningeal branch passes through the foramen spinosum, and so is also known as nervus spinosus, and it supplies the dura mater of the middle cranial fossa. I'm talking about the nerve to medial pterygoid. So this branch forms the motor route to the otic ganglion and supplies the tensor veli palatini and tensor tympani muscles without relying in it, and also the main muscle after which it is named, the medial pterygoid. Now all the muscular branches of this mandibular nerve, they supply the muscles from the deep surface of that muscle. It is mentioned under the in the textbook under every branch that it supplies the muscle under the from the deep surface of that muscle. So that applies for this branch as well. So the nerve to medial pterygoid supplies it from its deep surface. Now talking about the branches from the anterior division, so we have four branches: the buccal nerve, mesenteric nerve, deep temporal nerves, and nerve to the lateral pterygoid. So buccal nerve is the only sensory nerve, and also another peculiar point regarding it is that it supplies it passes between the two heads of lateral pterygoid. And as the name suggests, it supplies the skin and mucous membrane around the buccinator muscle, and also it supplies the labial aspect of the gums of molars and premolars. And it is quite logical, as this part, the part of the cheek, the buccal part, lies opposite to the molars and premolars. Then talking about the nerve to lateral pterygoid, so it supplies the muscle from its deep surface. Then talking about the deep temporal nerve, now these nerves supply the temporalis muscle from its deep surface, and there are two nerves, the anterior deep temporal nerve and posterior deep temporal nerve, and these nerves emerge at the upper border of the lateral pterygoid. Firstly, they are between the lateral pterygoid and the skull, and then emerge at the upper border of lateral pterygoid. Then talking about the mesenteric now. So mesenteric now, as its name suggests, it supplies the masseter muscle. It also gives an articular branch to supply the temporomandibular joint, and moreover, it passes laterally from the mandibular notch of the mandible. You need to be well acquainted with the osteological terms regarding the mandible. So it passes laterally from the mandibular notch. Also, it is present at the upper. It emerges from at the upper border of the lateral pterygoid along with deep temporal nerve. So there are two branches of mandibular nerve which are present at the upper border of the lateral pterygoid: the deep temporal nerves and the mesenteric nerve. And the point to be noted is that the buccal nerve is the only sensory branch from the anterior division. Now coming to the posterior division, so it gives off three branches: the auriculotemporal nerve, the lingual nerve, and the inferior nerve. And we shall discuss these branches in detail in another diagram so that we can appreciate the course and the relations more clearly. So now we shall discuss the branches of posterior division of the mandibular nerve. And before that, we shall understand what is this sphenomandibular ligament, as it is mentioned at many places in the branches of the mandibular nerve, in the course of branches of mandibular nerve. So as the name suggests, it extends from the sphenoid to mandible. But to be more specific, it originates at the spine of sphenoid and then extends to it is attached inferiorly at the lingula of mandible. Now this is a ligament reinforcing the temporomandibular joint, and talking about its relations, laterally it has the auriculotemporal nerve, maxillary artery, and the lateral pterygoid muscle, and medially we have the medial pterygoid muscle, chorda tympani nerve, and the wall of pharynx. So this was just to orient ourselves to the structures, and these structures are lateral to the sphenomandibular ligament. This part is lateral to it. So here you can see two of its lateral relations, the maxillary artery and the auriculotemporal nerve. This is the auriculotemporal nerve which ascends upwards then. But inferiorly, this is just a schematic diagram. Inferiorly it goes medial to the inner aspect of mandible, and there it attaches at the mandibular foramen. So as we saw, the posterior division gives off three branches: auriculotemporal nerve, lingual nerve, and the inferior nerve. So we begin with the auriculotemporal nerve. So talking about its course, as you can see, it originates from the posterior division by two roots, and these two roots then wind around the middle meningeal artery. This is the middle meningeal artery which enters the foramen spinosum. So these two roots wind around it and then form a single trunk and ascend upwards. Then in the second step, they lie between the sphenomandibular ligament and the neck of mandible, and then from the neck of mandible they ascend upwards deep to the superficial temporal vessels. They ascend to the temple and supply the skin of it. And talking about its branches, so the name itself suggests that it has two main branches: auricular branch and temporal branch. So the auricular branch supplies the upper part of pinna, the tragus, the upper part of external auditory canal, and the upper part of tympanic membrane. The lower counterparts of these structures are supplied by the great auricular nerve, that is a branch of cervical plexus, C2, C3, and the auricular branch of vagus. This was just for knowledge. Then we have the temporal branch, which supplies the skin around the temple. Then we have an articular branch to the temporomandibular joint. Now remember which another branch gives off an articular branch to temporomandibular joint? Yes, the mesenteric nerve. So these two now supply the temporomandibular joint, the mesenteric nerve and the auriculotemporal nerve. And the fourth and the last branch is the secretomotor branch, which supplies the parotid gland with the secretomotor fibers. So the auriculotemporal nerve originates from the posterior division by two roots. These two roots wind around the middle meningeal artery, then they combine and form a single trunk which ascends upwards. Then it lies between the sphenomandibular ligament and the neck of mandible, and lastly it ascends upwards from the neck of mandible deep to the superficial temporal vessels and enters the temple. And talking about these branches, so we have four branches and two main branches: the auricular and the temporal. Auricular branch supplies the skin of the tragus, then the upper parts of pinna, tympanic membrane, and the external auditory canal. A temporal branch supplies the skin of temple, and then we have an articular branch to the temporomandibular joint, and the secretomotor branch to parotid gland. Now talking about the lingual now. So lingual now is a very important now, as it carries the taste, the gustatory and the secretomotor fibers of the chorda tympani. The secretomotor fibers which supply the sublingual and submandibular salivary glands, and the gustatory fibers which supply the anterior 2/3 of the tongue. We are from the chorda tympani now. Also, the submandibular ganglion hangs from this now. So talking about its course. So firstly, it is present between the tensor veli palatina and lateral pterygoid. Then between medial pterygoid and lateral pterygoid. And it is joined by the chorda tympani now, which brings the taste, the gustatory and secretomotor fibers. Then it emerges at the lower border of lateral pterygoid. When it enters it lies closely touching the mandible, medial to the third molar and between the origins of superior constrictor and mylohyoid muscles. Then it leaves the gums and is present deep to the mylohyoid, firstly on the hyoglossus muscle and then on genioglossus muscle. So this is the lingual nerve which lies firstly on the hyoglossus muscle and then on the genioglossus muscle, and this can be well appreciated in this diagram of submandibular region. Then coming to the inferior alveolar nerve. So inferior alveolar nerve enters the mandibular foramen, as you can see, and it firstly lies lateral to the sphenomandibular ligament and the medial pterygoid muscle, and then enters the mandibular foramen. Also, while the dentists extract the molars, they need to anesthetize this nerve, inferior alveolar nerve, and they inject the inferior alveolar nerve just before it enters the mandibular foramen. It has three branches. One is the mylohyoid branch, as you can see. This is the mylohyoid nerve. Then the mental nerve and some branches which it gives off in the mandibular foramen. In the mandibular canal. So firstly talking about the mylohyoid nerve. So mylohyoid nerve originates just before the inferior alveolar nerve enters the mandibular foramen. It originates just before that. Then it pierces the sphenomandibular ligament along with the mylohyoid vessels. So as you can see, the mylohyoid artery and mylohyoid nerve pierce the sphenomandibular ligament. Then it lies in the mylohyoid groove along with the mylohyoid vessels, and finally supplies the muscle by which it is named, that is the mylohyoid muscle, and the anterior belly of digastric. Now remember what nerve supplies the posterior belly of digastric? Yes, the facial nerve. So the posterior belly of digastric is supplied by the facial nerve, and the anterior belly is supplied by the mylohyoid nerve, as we saw. Then talking about the branches in the mandibular canal. So branches in the mandibular canal supply the lower teeth and gums. And lastly, talking about the mental nerve. So as the name suggests, mental suggests the chin. So the mental nerve supplies the skin of chin and the skin and mucous membrane of the lower lip. And it emerges out from the mental foramen. Moreover, an incisive branch of this mental nerve supplies the labial aspect of the gums of incisors and canines. Remember which nerve supplies the labial aspect of molars and premolars? Yes, the buccal nerve. The buccal nerve supplies the labial aspect of molars and premolars. And of the remaining two, that is the incisors and canines, is supplied by the incisive branch of mental nerve. So inferior nerve is present lateral to the sphenomandibular ligament and the medial pterygoid muscle. It emerges at the lower border of the lateral pterygoid muscle and enters the mandibular foramen. It has three branches. Firstly, the mylohyoid nerve. So it arises just before when inferior alveolar nerve enters the mandibular foramen. Pierces the sphenomandibular ligament. Lies in the mylohyoid groove present on the inner aspect of the mandible, and lastly supplies the mylohyoid and the anterior belly of digastric. And coming to the nerves in the mandibular canal, they supply the lower teeth and gums. And lastly, the mental branch. So as the name suggests, it supplies the skin and mucous membrane of the chin. It emerges out of the mental foramen, and its incisive branch supplies the labial aspect of incisors and canines. Now for a better concept, let's brush up the branches which are related to the lateral pterygoid muscle. So as we discussed, from its upper border, two branches emerge, the deep temporal nerves and the mesenteric nerve. These emerge at the upper border of the lateral pterygoid. The buccal nerve emerges between the two heads of lateral pterygoid. This is the buccal nerve. And the inferior alveolar nerve and the lingual nerve emerge at the lower border of the lateral pterygoid muscle. Also, discussing the nerves related to the outer aspect of the mandible. Now you shall be able to grasp this better with the actual bone, taking the actual bone in your hand while studying the osteology. But Now just for a preliminary concept. So this is the outer aspect of the mandible, and here's the mandibular notch from which the mesenteric nerve passes outwards, emerges out. And this is the mental foramen from which the mental nerve emerges out. Talking about the branches of mandibular nerve associated with the inner aspect of mandible. So here's the auriculotemporal nerve, which is present at the neck of mandible. Then we have the infraalveolar nerve, which enters the mandibular foramen, as you can see. This is the mylohyoid nerve, which passes to the mylohyoid groove. And lastly, we have the lingual nerve, which is present adherent to the inner aspect of mandible between the origins of superior constrictor and mylohyoid. Now we shall revise the places where the sphenomandibular ligament is mentioned along with the branches of mandibular nerve. So and keep one thing in your mind that the sphenomandibular ligament is mentioned only with the branches of the posterior division. So firstly, it is mentioned thrice in the text. Firstly, that the auriculotemporal nerve ascends between sphenomandibular ligament and the neck of mandible. Then the infraalveolar nerve lies lateral to the sphenomandibular ligament in the medial pterygoid muscle. And lastly, the mylohyoid nerve along with the mylohyoid vessels pierces the sphenomandibular ligament. Now we shall brush up all the branches of the different divisions of trigeminal nerve which supply the teeth. Firstly, beginning with the labial aspects of teeth. So the incisors and canines are supplied by the labial aspect of the gums of incisors and canines are supplied by the incisive branch of mental nerve, which is a branch of infraalveolar nerve, which is in turn a branch of posterior division of mandibular nerve. Then the remaining are the molars and premolars. These are supplied by the buccal nerve. Now this is quite easy to remember as mental suggests chin, and opposite to chin we have the incisors and canines, and buccal suggests cheek, and opposite to the cheek we have the molars and premolars. So it's easy to remember. Then coming to the teeth and gums. So superiorly we have the branches of maxillary nerve as the superior teeth are present in the maxilla bone. So the branches of maxillary nerve supply them. So the anterior superior alveolar nerve supplies the incisors and canines. The middle superior alveolar nerve supplies the premolars, and the posterior superior alveolar nerve supplies the molars. And the inferior alveolar nerve, which is a branch of mandibular nerve, supplies the lower teeth, the teeth and gums of the lower jaw. So now let's do a small activity. So this is the image of our beloved Chintuji, and I'll place my finger on any of the parts of his face, and you shall tell me the branch of trigeminal nerve supplying that particular part. Yes, very good. It is supplied by the supratrochlear nerve. The lower part of forehead is supplied by the supratrochlear nerve. Yes, absolutely correct. It is supplied by the supraorbital nerve. The upper part of forehead and scalp till the vertex is supplied by supraorbital nerve. Yes, perfect. It is supplied by four nerves. Which four nerves? Yes. Lacrimal, supraorbital, supratrochlear and infratrochlear, going from lateral to medial. That's the upper eyelid, and these four nerves supplied. Yes, perfect. Infraorbital and infratrochlear. These two nerves supply the lower eyelid. Notice one thing, that supratrochlear and supraorbital supply the upper eyelid, and infratrochlear and infraorbital supply the lower eyelid. The infratrochlear is involved in the supply of upper eyelid as well. Okay, let's continue. Yes, that part is also supplied by infratrochlear nerve. So infratrochlear nerve supplies the upper eyelid, the lower eyelid, and the sides of nose. Yes, perfect. It is supplied by the external nasal branch of anterior ethmoidal nerve. This branch supplies the tip and the alley of nose. Yes, perfect. It is supplied by the zygomatic-facial nerve. Yes, that is a temper, and it is supplied by zygomaticotemporal and auriculotemporal nerves. Yes, very good. It is supplied by the auriculotemporal nerve, the auricular branch of auriculotemporal nerve. So, which other structures does the auricular branch supply? Yes, the upper part of external auditory canal, tympanic membrane, and the skin around the tragus. Yeah, that is supplied by the buccal nerve, the skin and mucous membranes adjoining the buccinator muscle. It is supplied by the buccal nerve. Perfect. That part is that is the chin, and it is supplied by the mental nerve. The name itself says that. Mental suggests chin, and it is supplied by the mental nerve. Yes, very good. Upper lip is supplied by the labial branches of infraorbital nerve, and lower lip is supplied by the mental nerve. The skin and mucous membrane of lower lip are supplied by the mental nerve. So this was about the nerve supply, the different branches of trigeminal nerve supplying the skin of face. Now we shall discuss the applied aspects of the trigeminal nerve. So firstly, as we know that there are three divisions of trigeminal nerve, and each division is associated with a particular reflex. For example, the ophthalmic nerve is associated with the corneal reflex, the maxillary nerve with sneeze reflex, and the mandibular nerve with jaw jerk reflex. So if the particular division is injured, then the reflex won't be elicited, and so it can be helpful in the diagnosis of that anomaly, that yes, the subject has some problem in the mandibular nerve or maxillary nerve or ophthalmic nerve. So if there is an injury to ophthalmic nerve, the corneal reflex won't be seen. If maxillary nerve is injured, then sneeze reflex won't be elicited, and if mandibular nerve is injured, then jaw jerk reflex won't be seen. Then discussing a very interesting condition known as congenital cutaneous nevi or the port wine stains. Now this is due to capillary malformation, a vascular disease, a vascular anomaly comprising of capillary malformation, and so the areas supplied by one or two branches of the trigeminal nerve are clearly mapped out on face, and like dark red stains are seen on the face, and those stains clearly accurately map out the areas supplied by the particular division. For example, there is a syndrome named Sturge-Weber syndrome, wherein the port wine stains accurately map out the area supplied with the ophthalmic nerve. Now, talking about a very common condition known as trigeminal neuralgia. So, firstly, what is neuralgia? Neuralgia is a pain which is experienced along the course of a nerve, and trigeminal neuralgia is quite suggestive that it is a neuralgia associated with the trigeminal nerve. It is due to a localized lesion or idiopathic, that is of unknown cause. And the disease is principally associated with the sensory root of the nerve, and chiefly the severe attacks of pain are seen in the areas supplied by most commonly the maxillary and the mandibular nerves. Also, the neuralgia of mandibular nerve is very intractable, and to treat it, often the sensory root is cut. I'll show in the diagram. So these are the three divisions, and this is the sensory root. Say this is V1, V2 and V3. So the sensory root is cut, but the V1, that is the ophthalmic, is preserved, as the corneal reflex is very necessary to prevent damage to eyes. So V1 is spared and the sensory root is cut to V2 and V3. Also, when there is an intractable pain due to trigeminal neuralgia or maybe carcinomatosis of tongue, then alcohol is injected in the ganglion to relieve the pain. Coming to the referred pain due to the auriculotemporal nerve. So in the basal carcinoma of tongue, when there is a cancer at the base of tongue, there is a referred pain at ear, ear and temple, as see the tongue is supplied by lingual nerve and these are supplied by auriculotemporal nerve. So, and these both are branches of the mandibular nerve, the same nerve. So the pain is carried to the auricle and temple by the auriculotemporal nerve. The referred pain is felt there, and often it is intractable, and so the lingual nerve is cut just at the site where it lies medial to the third molar and adherent to the mandible. Also, there are some points for the dental students, and those who seek knowledge also may note them down. So infraalveolar nerve, as I mentioned earlier, infraalveolar nerve is to be anesthetized for extracting the molars, and it is anesthetized just before it enters the mandibular foramen. And lingual nerve lies adherent to the jaw, to the mandible, medial to the third molar. So while extracting the tooth, there is a risk of injury to that nerve, as it is covered by only the mucous membrane, no other barrier protecting it. So care must be taken while extracting the tooth. So this was all about Trigemina. I hope you enjoyed learning with me. Thanks for watching.